Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Rush to Judgment with Jessica. And I am Jessica. How we doing? How's everybody doing today? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever it is you are coming from in your day, in the world, and in your life. I hope everybody is doing well and everybody is keeping up with the keeping up. are we doing okay? Are we hanging in there? Do we need some love? Do we need some extra TLC? What do we need? What can we help you with today? You want to watch some crazy stories? Will that help? I think that'll help. That always seems to help because that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna watch some crazy stories, and we're gonna talk about them. I gotta put this down because it's hurt. Oh, there we go. Because I'm old and my legs. I'll just put this down toe so it's not in the way. Okay, so we're gonna talk about some crazy true stories, and we're gonna react to them because that's what we do here. We watch stuff and we talk through it. So if you're the type of person that does not like commentary throughout your videos, this is not the channel for you. But if you do, and you talk through videos and you talk through movies like I do, this is the channel for you. But I will remind you that I am not an expert and I do not have any expert training or nor do I specialize in any specific educational training. These are merely for my entertainment and for your entertainment, hopefully. And it is to, oh shit, sorry, god damn it, I cannot. Swear to God, I just am I don't know what to do with my hands. So it is merely for the entertainment of me and you is to watch these videos and pass judgment on others and to, make comments and not always just pass judgment like in a mean way, but, maybe throw out some words of wisdom here and there. Sometimes I have some words of wisdom. Sometimes sometimes I can be helpful, I think, you know, but by all means do not take what I say as fact or fiction. I don't know. Just, take it as it is and, you know, use your best judgment. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Don't rush to judgment with my words of wisdom. Just use your best judgment. I'd say use common sense, but not everybody has that. So I don't like to use that. So when people say use your common sense, I don't like to use that term. Not everybody has that. Nothing against you. You might, you know. I don't know you personally. I'm sure you do. But, not everybody does. So I don't want to, you know, single anybody out. But anywho's, let's. Oh, and also reminder, please hit that like and subscribe button. And you can go ahead and share the videos and you can hit the notification bell when you subscribe. And you can get notifications every time I put out a new video. And that way you can keep up with me and keep current. Because, when it's not holidays and such, I do try to put out a new video at least every day. If not, I try to put out, right now I'm just trying to catch up. So, putting out a few at a time. So that's what I'm working on right now. But definitely go and hit that like and subscribe button because that is helpful. that's helpful. I appreciate it, and I do very much enjoy when you hit and slap that like button. I much prefer the subscribe button as well. So, okay, let us get into this one. Oh, and also just a reminder that I don't watch these videos ahead of time. So what it is what it is. And I don't know what it is. So it is a true reaction to whatever it is. But they're true stories about whatever this is. And they are true crime, true twisted stories. And yeah, so let us get into that. Let me put me down here in the corner, get me out of the frame, and we shall press play. He's got a shirt off.
I just want to let you know that I want to follow myself, you know?
He wants to follow himself, y'all.
Believe in myself.
That's good.
Yes, I don't know how to do this. My son, I'm concerned about his own safety. It seems like he's a little delusional.
I know what's right for me.
There's I just heard like shots fired.
I know that they can change me. But the thing is, that's not being healthy, you know? I used to think that I needed steroids to be this thing, to be this symbol, to be this lie.
Sounded really. How many did you hear? It was like one and then da-da-da.
We're all the same, though. Peace out. Peace.
The young man in this video is 19-year-old Austin Harriff, a promising student and football player, or at least he used to be those things. That's because just 3 days after posting this video, he claimed to have been overcome by dog spirits, who police say drove him to commit a frenzied, cannibalistic crime.
Oh dear.
What's most intriguing about this case is the fact that Austin documented his life in YouTube videos, mainly consisting of workout tips or karaoke-style cover songs, proving unique insight into his state of mind. His videos strongly allude to his darker persona, as does his channel's description. I've got a psycho side and a normal side. I've lost my mind, help me find it. While many of the possible warning signs went unnoticed in the time leading up to the attack, people still wonder how the seemingly average young man transformed into an accused killer with superhuman strength. Austin Harriff was born on December 21st, 1996, in Jupiter, Florida, to Wade and Mina Harriff. Austin lived primarily with his mother and excelled in high school, even enrolling in advanced courses in several subjects. He also played on his school's football team and was widely considered a popular, good-looking guy. Austin had big dreams of working in the medical field someday, just like his mother, father, and grandfather. But he also had passions for singing and songwriting. So in 2016, he began his freshman year at Florida State University. Austin seemed to blend right into college life as a rather quiet member of the Alpha Delta Phi fraternity. And his grades were excellent, but by that summer, he had started to become unhinged. Austin's family reported his behavior during this time as somewhat erratic and unrecognizable to the young man they once knew. Suddenly, Austin was hardly sleeping at all and seemed obsessively fixated on helping other people. Not to mention, his YouTube videos had grown much darker in recent months. On July 13th, 2016, just 1 month before the attack, he posted a video showing himself carrying a gun before grabbing a knife and walking with the pointed end facing out. Oh, and just a few days before he posted that video, he shared a clip of himself rapping the lyrics, "I'm like Bugs Bunny, I stick my teeth in because it's funny. I'm like a Looney Tune, I take a lot of shrooms." His mother, Mina, was particularly concerned by the bizarre, or disgusting as she called them, poems and song lyrics she found written in her son's journal. One entry read, "Do you know what it feels like to be so afraid to speak? Becoming a bully because all the bullies bullied me. Man, I just wanted to be accepted. The anxiety I feel inside feels like I internally bleed. So much pain and embarrassment every week." Austin was clearly struggling with some inner demons, but there was even more intense warning signs in his internet search history. Months before the crime took place, he had searched for answers to countless questions, including, I think I'm going crazy, am I? Must I sleep? What am I? And can we really control more than we think? On August 16, 2016, Austin confessed to his sister that he thought himself to be immortal and half human, half horse. Alarmed by this admission, his sister encouraged him to seek the help of a therapist, unaware that their mother had already been considering having Austin evaluated under Florida's Baker Act. Under this law, a person can be detained for up to 72 hours while an assessment of their well-being takes place.
You are not
The Baker Act allows doctors, mental health professionals, judges, and law enforcement to commit a person to a mental health treatment center for up to 72 hours if they display certain violent signs of mental illness or if they may be at risk for taking their own life. The purpose of the Baker Act is to allow time for a mental health evaluation to be performed and to de-escalate a crisis.
We have that
This
here.
evaluation will confirm whether the individual is experiencing a mental health issue, and if the person is determined not to be a danger to themselves or others, they will be released after the holding period. Unfortunately, he didn't receive the treatment he needed in time, and later that night, all of Austin's internal struggles boiled over to the surface. Austin was out to dinner with his parents at Duffy's Sports Grill when he apparently got angry and walked out of the restaurant alone. From there, he went to his mother's house and allegedly began drinking cooking oil mixed with Parmesan cheese. Mina stated that she drove him back to the restaurant, but Austin stormed out for good when an argument erupted between him and his father. Mina was incredibly worried about her son and frightened by his behavior, so she called 911.
My son, he's kind of taken off, and I'm concerned about his own safety.
How old is he?
Acting a little strange. 19. It seems like he's a little delusional, and he was out to dinner with his dad today, and he took off, and we just, he was with his sister, and he says, he feels immortal, and
he feels like he's
superhero,
half human
so
and a horse.
I don't know what's going on with him.
Oh, shit.
Meanwhile, 3.5 miles
Why
away,
would I do that?
59-year-old John Stevens and his wife, 53-year-old Michelle Stevens, were having a relaxing evening in their favorite hangout spot, the garage. While it's not everybody's cup of tea, the retired couple had set up a television and chairs, and they kept the door open so they could say hello to passing neighbors. They jokingly called it their Garage Mahal. One of their children later told reporters, it wasn't classy, but it was a gathering place. That garage always brought people together. At around 9:20 that evening, a 911 call came in from one of the Stevens neighbors, Jeff Fisher. He claimed to have been awoken by strange sounds and screams coming from outside. When he went to see what was going on, he saw a young man attacking Michelle in her garage. He turned and looked at me and said, "You want no part of this," or "You don't want a part of me," one of the two, and then from his right hand swung. Not realizing the intruder was carrying a knife, Jeff approached him and was violently slashed and stabbed. After a brief altercation, the helpful neighbor retreated into his home, badly injured, and called the police. Now, spoiler alert, the man accused of wielding the knife is Austin Hariff.
911, do you need fire, police, or medical?
Police and medical. Young man beating up a woman across the street.
Okay, are they outside or in a house?
It's in a garage. I think he had a knife, but I'm not positive.
Are either of them injured? Can you tell from where you are?
Yes, there's a girl laying on the ground. He beat her up.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Can you have your wife or I don't want you moving if you've been stabbed, but can you have your wife or someone look out and see if he's still there?
I don't know. See if that car's still there, honey. It appears he's still there.
Officers descended on the scene, and what they found will surely haunt them for years to come. Police described finding Austin on top of John Stevens with his fingers like a fishhook in his mouth, pulling at his cheek. Deputies attempted to subdue Austin with a taser, who was allegedly growling as he used his mouth to tear at the innocent man's face.
Ugh.
The taser didn't seem to faze the crazed frat boy. so authorities were forced to use a canine attack dog. But unfortunately, it was too late for John and Michelle, who were declared dead at the scene. Once subdued, Austin allegedly told authorities that he ate something bad. When asked what it was, he simply replied, humans. Jeff Fisher was rushed to the hospital where he underwent emergency surgery to save his life. Austin was also transported to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. In addition to various sharp force wounds, his lungs and liver were failing, and he was going through periods of convulsions. It's possible that whatever caused Austin's lungs and liver to fail could have contributed to the attack. For example, if he ingested an unknown substance, this could have had an effect on his thoughts and behavior. However, at this time, there's not enough information to determine what caused Austin's organs to fail. A medical examiner concluded that John had died from knife wounds prior to being mauled, and that Michelle had also suffered multiple stab wounds, but her cause of death was from being beaten. The initial consensus was that Austin had likely been using Flakka at the time of the attack. However, a toxicology report indicated that Flakka wasn't in Austin's system that night. Instead, only trace amounts of THC were found, along with the prescriptions administered at the hospital. A fellow university student told reporters that he suspected Austin's behavior could be attributed to roid rage, related to excessive use of steroids. While those claims have never been verified, the acquaintance mentioned that Austin seemed to gain muscle at an alarming rate during his first year of college. Unable to determine what Austin had consumed to make him so sick, doctors listed him in critical condition and treated him for schizophrenia. Some believe he drank chemicals found in the Stevens garage to take his own life, but we may never know because Austin claims to have no recollection of that night's events. In the 911 call that Austin's mom made, she mentioned that Austin was a little delusional. Delusions can be a symptom of schizophrenia. The age of onset for schizophrenia in males is usually between late teens to early 20s, which fits with Austin's age at the time of the incident. Family members are usually the first to notice that something seems off. Early warning signs of schizophrenia include the following: a concerning drop in grades in school or performance at work, trouble thinking clearly or concentrating, suspiciousness of or uneasiness around others, a decline in self-care or personal hygiene, inappropriately strong emotions or no feelings at all, unusual thoughts or beliefs, hearing, seeing, tasting, or believing things that others don't. The odd questions in Austin's search history prior to the crime, e.g., I think I'm going crazy, am I? Must I sleep? What am I? And can we really control more than we think? Indicate that big changes may have been occurring in his mind, and he was trying to figure out what was happening to him.
No.
Difficulty sleeping, feeling afraid of going crazy, feeling strong and powerful, thinking you have special powers, and thinking bizarre things are all early warning signs of a psychotic break. After recovering from his physical injuries, Austin was transferred to Martin County Jail to await trial. Authorities released a heartbreaking call between him and his father.
Hello?
Hey, Austin.
Hey, Dad.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay.
I'm real proud of you. How you didn't answer any questions.
Yeah. Well,
You're good.
how are you doing?
I'm all right.
Well, how's life?
It's tough on us, Austin. We're not used to this.
Am I going to be okay?
Yeah, you're going to be okay.
Just hard adjusting to the jail.
I know you need to get a Bible, Austin.
I know. I asked for one.
Do you have one?
Are you getting me a therapist or anything?
Yes, I plan on it. Everything's going to be all right. I mean, don't worry about nothing. We're going to get through this.
Okay. Anything new on the news? Not about me, but anything new in the outside world?
Yeah, there's a hurricane coming.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to Tampa.
You are?
Yeah, I'm going to put my boat up and stuff.
Mm.
I'll never give up on you.
Okay.
I promise, okay?
All right.
You listen, Austin, you got to stay strong here now.
I know.
It's the toughest thing you've ever done.
I know.
But you got to stay strong.
I'm just adjusting.
I know it's going to be hard to adjust, but you'll get used to it. And we'll we'll
Do you
get the
know how
best
long
thing
I'm
we
gonna
can do
be
to.
here?
Huh?
Do you know how long I'm going to be here?
A long time.
I don't know how it works yet, but hopefully we can get you into a mental place
Yeah,
as time goes on.
yeah.
That's what the first step is.
You think they can?
Yes, I do. I'll spend whatever it takes to get you out of there. Okay?
Okay.
I love you, bud.
I love you too.
Austin's voice during the call with his dad is very flat and sounds monotone at times. Negative symptoms such as diminished emotional expression are another symptom of schizophrenia.
I mean, it doesn't
A
sound
forensic psychologist
flat.
evaluated
It
Austin,
sounds
and
very
according to
full
the
of
report,
emotion.
he had been suffering from sinister hallucinations accompanied by the feeling that he was a god of some sort. As he had told his sister earlier, he also believed himself to
sounds
be
very
half
scared
human,
and
half
very
animal,
sad.
often a horse, dog, or werewolf. The assessment concluded that Austin was legally insane on the night of the crime, stating he had experienced an acute psychotic episode that rendered him unable to distinguish right from wrong. Hallucinations feel very real to the person experiencing them. They affect one's senses, so the person may hear, see, smell, feel, and or taste things that aren't real.
You said that
According to the
already.
report, Austin could only recount bits and pieces from that evening, including putting on a Michael Vick jersey that he claimed made him feel indestructible before going to dinner. There, he said he was overwhelmed by a sense that time had come to a standstill, and he was the Grim Reaper. He gave a short mention of hearing voices as he ran from the restaurant toward his father's house, passing right by the Stevens home. Finally, Austin reportedly told the psychologist that the last thing he remembered was viciously mauling John before waking up in the hospital. Following the evaluation, experts deemed Austin a threat to both himself and the general public. As a result, it was suggested that he spend the remainder of his life in a psychiatric hospital or prison. But of course, it's all dependent on whether or not he's found legally insane at trial. Not guilty by reason of insanity is a plea that can be entered by a defendant in a criminal trial, where the defendant claims that they were so mentally disturbed or incapacitated at the time of the offense that they didn't have the required intention to commit the crime and are therefore not guilty. Essentially, the defendant is admitting they committed the alleged crime while denying responsibility because they lack the capacity to act with criminal intent at the time. This doesn't result in the defendant going free, but such a verdict will require the defendant to be admitted into a mental institution, sometimes even for the duration of their life. Austin Harriff was set to stand trial in May 2020, but it was delayed due to the judge's request for a second mental health evaluation. His defense attorneys argued this motion, but it was ultimately approved a few months later. In contrast, the second psychologist found that Austin was not legally insane that night. While the new trial date is pending, some sources expect it to be sometime in spring 2022. In the meantime, Austin is also facing a wrongful death lawsuit alleging that he regularly drank
He was
alcohol in
found not
excess.
guilty by
The
reason
suit
of
also contends
insanity.
that he had purchased a switchblade the day before
I don't know
John
what
and
happened
Michelle's
after
deaths. A wrongful death lawsuit is a civil suit that allows surviving family members to seek
I don't know what
justice
happened with
on
that
behalf of
either,
a loved one
or
who
if
passed
he's still
away
going through
due to
that.
an act of carelessness or violence. The burden of proof is lower than in a criminal case, and a guilty
Well, I
verdict
would
will result
assume
in
he
monetary
would be
damages
found
being
guilty
awarded
of
to the
that.
victim's family and has no implication on the defendant's freedom. A defendant can be found not guilty criminally, but guilty civilly, like in the infamous O.J. Simpson case. All right, on that note, it's time to move on to our second mind-blowing case.
So I'm just going to ask you, do you, Dylan Millard, solemnly affirm that in this statement you shall tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And I walked to my room, and then I was on my way back to the kitchen to make a snack, and I noticed that my father seemed to still be asleep in bed, which was odd because it was late in the afternoon. I poked my head in, and then I walked into the room, and I saw the blood on the pillow, and he's dead.
Let's face it, buying and selling things online is basically second nature at this point, and most
Right.
people don't think twice about the possible risks. I mean, surely you'd be able to sense a dangerous situation from a mile away, right? That's exactly what Tim Bosma must have thought when he posted his truck for sale online. However, Instead of a smooth transaction, the church-going father went on what was supposed to be a quick test drive with 2 prospective buyers and was never seen again. On the evening of May 6, 2013, in Ancaster, Ontario, 32-year-old Tim Bosma left his wife Charlene and their 2-year-old daughter at home while he took 2 men on a test drive in a truck he hoped to sell. The couple had posted the vehicle online, but something about the whole situation felt off, starting with the fact that the 2 men arrived at their home on foot. They claimed to have been dropped off by a friend, but neither Charlene nor Tim recalled
that's why they
seeing
needed
another
a
vehicle.
truck.
While waiting for the men to arrive, Tim had actually asked his wife if he should go on the test drive with them, to which she replied, "Yes, you should, because we want the truck to come back." So the young father left, assuring his wife that he would be right back. But when he still hadn't returned after more than an hour had passed, Charlene began to panic. She tried calling Tim's cell phone over and over, but eventually the call started going straight to voicemail. After a little more time passed with no word, Charlene called the Hamilton police and reported him missing. Due to the unusual circumstances, officers initiated a search right away, deploying K-9 units, a search and rescue team, and enlisting the help of community volunteers. During a press conference, Charlene begged for her husband's safe return, saying, "It was just a truck, a stupid truck. You do not need him, but I do. Our daughter needs her daddy." Tim's cell phone was recovered 3 days later from an industrial site roughly 20 minutes outside Ancaster. But still, there was no sign of the missing father. Investigators quickly realized that whoever called Tim about the truck that night had been using a burner phone registered to a fake name. Still, he wasn't the only person in the Toronto area that had been recently contacted by that number. Smartphones are easy to track and are often a key piece of evidence police rely on to solve crimes. Burner phones are often used by criminals, as it's harder to trace back to the owner, but as you will see, not impossible. An Israeli army veteran, Igor Tumenenko, spoke to detectives and informed them that he had also received a call from that number regarding a truck he was selling. 2 days before Tim's disappearance, he said that he'd brought 2 men on a test drive and described one as wearing some kind of distinctive satchel with a tattoo of the word ambition on his wrist. Police held another press conference, alerting the public to this new information, and within just a couple of days, they got the call that would ultimately crack this case and send shockwaves throughout Canada. Officers from Toronto and Peel heard the description put out by Hamilton police and immediately knew who their suspect was: Dylan Millar. Born August 30th, 1985 to Wayne Millar and Madeline
Dylan.
Burns, Dylan was privileged
That's
from
cool
the very
name.
start.
Cool
His
name.
mother worked as a flight attendant and his father was a pilot for the family's aviation firm, Millard Air, as well as Air Canada, where the couple met. Dylan was raised in Toronto as an only child and shared his parents' passion for flying from a young age. In fact, he was just 14 years old when he set the world record for being the youngest Canadian to fly a helicopter and an airplane solo on the same day. By age 27, Dylan owned several costly properties in the Toronto area, where he was known to host lavish parties. He also spent a lot of time working on planes with his father, but his cushy life would soon take a dark turn. Now, let's go back roughly 6 months before Tim disappeared. On November 29, 2012, Dylan found his father dead in his bed from a single gunshot wound to his left eye. Dylan was brought in for questioning, where he said that his father carried some great sadness with him throughout life that I never knew. He never wanted to share that with me. As a result, investigators ruled that Wayne Millar had taken his own life and closed the case, leaving Dylan to inherit millions.
I was on my way back to the kitchen
Pretty sus.
to make a snack, and I noticed that my father seemed to still be asleep in bed, which was odd because it was late in the afternoon. I poked my head in, and something didn't really seem right about the way he was laying. He was laying very stilly. And then I walked into the room.
Very stilly.
And I saw the blood on the pillow. I got out my phone. And I walked back into my dad's room. And I called my mother. And I told her, he's dead.
So, after receiving tips from the Toronto and Peel agencies, authorities caught up with Dylan at the Millard Air hangar to question him about Tim's disappearance. They were incredibly suspicious of the party boy and immediately put him under surveillance. You see, unbeknownst to everyone, Dylan was a familiar face to authorities, who seemed to remember his tattoo from the interrogation following his father's death. Then, just 4 days after Tim Bosma vanished, Dellin was arrested based on cell phone data showing his movements matched with the burner phone. Police also obtained a warrant to search his various properties. When reviewing security footage from Dellin's hangar on the night of Tim's disappearance, police could clearly see a pickup truck towing a trailer and 2 individuals walking inside. Then a large burst of flames erupted from the trailer, suggesting the use of the incinerator. Investigators located Tim's truck in a large trailer in Dellin's mother's driveway the very next day. The vehicle had been stripped and cleaned, but forensic testing revealed blood evidence and traces of gunshot residue. Oh, but even more damning, Dellin was found carrying Tim's keys on his own keyring. An acquaintance of Dellin's informed detectives that he kept some strange things around one of his properties, including a 10-foot portable livestock incinerator with the Eliminator written on the side. Investigators recovered bone fragments, including human teeth, from inside the incinerator. But due to the damage caused by the fire, it was impossible to run DNA tests on the remains. However, based on the circumstances, police felt confident that they belonged to Tim Bosma, and on May 14th, they publicly confirmed his death. Dellin Millar was subsequently charged with first-degree murder, and as if this story wasn't insane enough, it's time to introduce Dellin's accomplice, Mark Smitch. Dellin met Mark, a high school dropout, in 2006, and the two bonded over a shared passion for video games. They committed several petty crimes together over the years and seemed to enjoy the thrill of stealing. However, a mutual friend would later report that Mark worshipped Dell, but Dell hated him. Psychopaths are known for being able to con and manipulate other people into doing things that benefit themselves. This could explain the discrepancies in the friendship they appeared to have, as opposed to how Dellin actually felt about Smitch, according to their mutual friend. Following Dellin's arrest, police put Mark under surveillance for a week before taking him into custody on the same day as Tim's funeral. He was also charged with first-degree murder.
I bet
Now,
Mark
you might be
didn't
wondering how
say
these two
nothing,
guys knew Tim,
but
or why they might have wanted him dead. But the terrifying truth is that they were
Dellin
perfect
said everything.
strangers. Still, police would soon find out that Tim wasn't their only victim. Enter Laura Babcock. 23-year-old Laura was Dellin's ex-girlfriend, and at the time of his arrest, she'd been missing for almost a full year. The pair casually dated around 2008, but they had both moved on to different people after a relatively short time together. However, when Laura found herself facing some mental health issues, she started sleeping with Dellin again, despite him being in a new relationship. Those who knew the young aspiring actress said she was kind, bubbly, and always on her phone. That's why alarm bells went off right away when she stopped posting to social media and responding to messages. As detectives worked to unravel the twisted story, they learned that Dellin's other love interest, Christina Nudka, did not get along with Laura. As a result, Dellin sent Laura a message in April reading, "You are harmful to me. Please don't try to contact me until you've made some huge leaps of self-discovery. As I said before, good luck with life." But unfortunately, Laura continued to reach out to Dellin. In early July 2012, Dellin sent a message to Christina telling her that he would stop Laura's interference in their relationship, saying, "First I'm going to hurt her, then I'll make her leave. I will remove her from our lives." Cell phone records show that Dellin brought Laura to his house just before she vanished. He took a chilling photo of what appears to be something, possibly a human, wrapped in a tarp later that day. Detectives also discovered that Dellin had recently purchased a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver, and that the Eliminator had arrived just 2 days after Laura went missing. Dellin later texted Mark, "Barbecue has run its warm-up. It's ready for meat." Laura was reported missing by worried friends and family members on July 14th, but the police believed her disappearance was of her own choosing. Not buying the police's explanation, Laura's loved ones took matters into their own hands, and after hearing of Dellin's arrest, they contacted the authorities. A search of Mark Smitch's property yielded some very incriminating pieces of evidence, including Laura's iPad and other personal belongings. They also found a disturbing recording of Mark rapping.
The bitch started off all skin and bone. Now the bitch lay on some ashen stone. Last time I saw her outside the home. And if you go swimming, you can find a phone. Find a phone? What? Find a phone. If you go swimming, you'll find a phone.
Dellin wrote approximately 65 letters to Christina from prison during this time, mostly telling her that they needed to get their stories straight and suggesting they tell police that Laura had overdosed. He explicitly told Christina to destroy the letters, but investigators later found them strewn about her home. While inmates have a First Amendment right to write and receive mail, incoming mail is legally allowed to be opened and read by corrections staff and can be used as evidence against the
So
inmate.
they're outgoing
The main
mail.
reason for this is that contraband is often smuggled into prison via mail. Outgoing mail can also be opened if it poses a legitimate prison security issue. The only exception is mail that specifies it's privileged, i.e. going to or from an attorney. This kind of communication is protected by attorney-client confidentiality. Legal mail must be specifically written on the envelope of all such communications. At this point, prosecutors felt confident that they had ample evidence to secure a conviction in the cases of both Laura Babcock and Tim Bosma. But there was still one more victim awaiting justice. Remember Dellen's father, Wayne Millar? Well, he had died from what police ruled a self-inflicted gunshot wound just a few months after Laura disappeared. However, now that they understood how dangerous Dellen was, investigators knew they had to give his case a second look. After a bit of digging, they found out that Wayne had threatened to cut Dellen off financially, as he was recklessly spending all of the family's money. Do I sense a motive? Psychopaths often live a parasitic lifestyle, meaning they leech off of other people. They also are callous and lack empathy, with their relationships being surface level only. Dellen relied on financial support from his father, and he may have lacked the ability to have a genuine emotional connection with him. Psychopaths use other people as a means to an end. Dellen may have believed that his father was no longer useful to him alive, since he wasn't going to be providing him with money anymore. Forensic tests on the Smith & Wesson revolver found by Wayne's body showed Dellen's DNA all over the place. Moreover, there was no gunshot residue on Wayne, implying that he hadn't been the one to pull the trigger. Gunshot residue testing, often referred to as simply GSR, is a valuable resource for the police and prosecutors. When a gun is fired, the shotgun residue particles are emitted from the back of the weapon, flying onto the skin and clothes of the person holding the gun when it fires. This residue cannot be removed by normal washing or cleaning, and therefore can be taken from suspects with adhesive collection devices for testing. This evidence is rather compelling when found, as it's hard to explain how it got there if you didn't in fact fire the weapon. Dellen manipulated the police and lied about his father having some great sadness in order to paint the death as him taking his own life. Dellen Millar and Mark Smich went on trial, with prosecutors arguing that Tim was likely shot in the truck shortly after leaving his home. While many speculate that the crime was simply committed for the thrill of it, the motive has never been clearly defined. Despite countless attempts to pin the crime on each other, both men were convicted for the murder of Tim Bosma in June 2016. They each received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. You may be wondering how both men were convicted for murder when they each blame the other. This is because of a jury instruction that can be given called acting in concert. Essentially, what that means is when two or more people join in a common purpose to commit a crime, each of them, if actively or constructively present, is guilty of any crime committed by the other in pursuit of the common purpose to commit the crime. A need for stimulation and proneness to boredom are psychopathic traits, as well as lack of remorse. Dellen may have got a thrill out of the fact that he got away with murder not once, but twice, so he wanted to do it again. Dellen claimed he was bankrupt following the conviction, so he insisted on representing himself at the trial for Laura Babcock's murder. On the very first day, he arrogantly questioned Laura's father, saying, "This can't be easy for you, being questioned by me, considering I'm the accused. Does this make it extra difficult?" Clearly, he didn't do an outstanding job of representing himself, because both Dellen and Mark received additional life sentences for the death of Laura Babcock. Psychopaths have an inflated sense of self known as grandiosity. Psychopaths see themselves as superior to other people, and they have a disdain for those around them.
A
Representing
word of
himself may have been
advice.
Dellen's way of taking control or
Don't
even
represent
alleviating
yourself.
boredom, and his behavior toward Laura's father indicates that he lacked
Never a
empathy.
good idea.
Under the Sixth Amendment, in addition to guaranteeing the right to retained or appointed counsel, it also guarantees a defendant the right to represent themselves. This is called being pro se or pro per. Then, in 2018, Dellen was tried alone for the murder of his father. The court heard about Wayne's idea to start an airplane maintenance and repair business to help restore the family's finances. They also heard about Dellen's out-of-control spending habits and his general disinterest in contributing financially. But the real icing on the cake for the prosecution was his alibi. Dellen claimed to have been at Mark Smitch's house the night his father died, and by now he wasn't exactly considered a reliable source. Dellen was ultimately found
damn.
guilty of shooting and killing his own father, landing him a
That
third
sucks.
life prison sentence. So, for those not keeping count, Mark must serve a minimum of 50 years behind bars, and Dellen 75 before even being considered for release. Laura Babcock's father made a statement to reporters following Dellen's third conviction, saying, "It's been proven that not only the Bosmas and ourselves lost a loved one, the Millar family must live with the fact that this heinous individual murdered his own father. We feel for Wayne's relatives, save for one." Christina Nuga, Dellen's girlfriend, was charged with accessory after the fact to murder for helping cover up Tim Bosma's death. However, she accepted a plea deal and agreed to testify against Dellen, resulting in just a 3-month prison sentence for her involvement. During the trial, she claimed to have had no idea what happened to Tim, saying she was distracted as they drove to hide the truck. Yeah, sure. While the remains of Laura and Tim have never been entirely found or identified, their families find some solace in knowing that these madmen will be locked away for good. Now, I'm sure your head is still spinning from this one, but let's move on to our final shocking true crime case. When Susan Smith took her children out for a nighttime drive to clear her head, no one ever expected it to make national headlines. However, decades later, people still can't stop talking about that fateful night and the heinous actions of one individual. Let's start at the beginning. Susan Vaughn had a troubled upbringing filled with pain and loss. In 1977, her father took his own life, leaving Susan to be mercilessly hurt by her mother's new husband. After years of torment, 13-year-old Susan became severely depressed. Finally, in 1987, she confided in her high school guidance counselor and mother and told them what she'd been enduring at the hands of her stepfather. But they allegedly decided not to press charges, so Susan's nightmare continued. Doctors attributed Susan's behavior to stress and diagnosed her with an adjustment disorder. As a result, she began seeing a psychiatrist and, strangely, expressed that her inappropriate relationship with her stepfather was completely consensual. Furthermore, she claimed to be jealous of the male attention her mother garnered. Doctors and mental health providers give an adjustment disorder diagnosis when a person has symptoms, such as depression and/or anxiety, but the symptoms are due to a particular stressor that the person is going through at a particular point in time. After years of mistreatment, despite her attempts to get help, Susan may have felt like the only thing she could control was her response. She may have felt powerless, as she couldn't escape what was happening, so she chose to take back some control of her life by telling herself and the psychiatrist that it was consensual. While working at a Winn-Dixie supermarket, Susan met David Smith, a strict Jehovah's Witness. 1 year later, the pair got married. 19-year-old Susan was already 2 months pregnant with their first child, Michael, at the wedding. However, there was trouble in paradise from the moment they said, "I do." The Smiths argued constantly. They briefly separated, but attempted to reconcile following the birth of their second son, Alex. Unfortunately, that lasted all of 3 weeks before Susan started looking outside her marriage for companionship again. While the extramarital affairs started as casual flings, sometimes even with married men, Susan became deeply involved with her boss's son, Tom Findlay, in 1994. Tom was good-looking, wealthy, and reportedly quite the catch, so it's not hard to see why Susan fell head over heels so fast. Susan filed for divorce from David later that year, hoping that her relationship with Tom would soon blossom into something more serious. But Tom wasn't ready to become a father figure to her children.
This is why she did what she did with the kids.
Still, in October of 1994, Susan wrote him a letter saying, "I want you to know that I've never felt with anyone the way I feel when I'm with you. I've never felt so needed. You're a very special person, and that is part of why making love to you is so wonderful."
Ugh.
Tom's response came the very next day, and needless to say, Susan was crushed by his words. Here's a snippet from the typed letter he sent.
Oh, that was
Susan,
her.
I could really fall for you, but like I've told you before, there are some things about you that aren't suited for me, and yes, I'm speaking about your children. I'm sure that your kids are good kids, but it really wouldn't matter how good they may be. The fact is, I just don't want children. These feelings may change one day, but I doubt it. With all of the crazy, mixed-up things that take place in this world today, I just don't have the desire to bring another life into it, and I don't want to be responsible for anyone else's children either. But I'm very thankful that there are people like you who are not so selfish as I am, and don't mind bearing the responsibility of children. On October 25th, Susan allegedly drove to Tom's office in a frenzy to tell him that she was upset because David had discovered some personal information about her and threatened to share it with other people. Although it's not entirely clear what he found out or if that's even true, claims have been made that Susan was still sleeping with her stepfather around this time. In any case, the tumultuous conversation ended with Susan telling Tom that she had slept with his father and him demanding she leaves. Susan was completely beside herself and didn't know what to do, so 3 hours later, she strapped 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex into her 1990 Mazda Protege. They took off into the night, but what happened next came as a shock to everyone. Susan's actions indicate that she was desperate for attention, especially from Tom. When her first attempt at getting his attention didn't work, i.e. her claim that David was threatening to share information about her, she may have resorted to what is presumably a lie about how she was sleeping with Tom's father. She may have wanted any attention from Tom that she could get, even if it was negative attention. Susan may have had a deep fear of abandonment, and when Tom ended things because of her children, she could not handle that rejection. A short time later, a local resident reported Susan running frantically to their door and explaining through sobs that she had just been carjacked and that a black man had kidnapped her 2 sons at gunpoint. Susan reported the incident to the police, reiterating that a man had jumped into her car while stopped at a traffic light. She initially claimed to have been returning from Walmart, but later changed her mind and said she was just out for a drive. Authorities began searching for the missing children immediately, even employing the help of helicopters, but nothing came of their efforts. She may have changed her story when she realized that Walmart possibly had security footage that could reveal she was lying about being there. This implies that she may not have thought through her plan very carefully before giving her story to police. For more than a week straight, Susan made tearful pleas on the news alongside David, begging for the safe return of their babies. However, something about the whole situation seemed really fishy, and not just to the authorities. Those who knew Susan were also side-eyeing her story. Beyond not acting in a manner consistent with a woman who just lost her children, Susan was virtually unable to give detectives a description of the carjacker. Many noted that she seemed overly concerned with her appearance and that she'd put on the facade of a grief-stricken mother in front of the news camera. However, the most incriminating piece of information came from Susan's account that she'd been stopped at a red light when the attacker entered her car. She told investigators that there were no other cars on the road, but if that were true, then the traffic light wouldn't have been red. You see, this particular light only turned red if there was another vehicle in the opposing lane. Susan and David both agreed to take polygraph tests, a notoriously unreliable measurement of whether or not someone is telling the truth. Still, while David passed with flying colors, Susan failed multiple times. Then, on November 3rd, she made a statement on national news alongside David. But moments after the camera stopped rolling, she finally cracked under the growing pressure and confessed the horrible crime to police behind a local church. She tearfully told them that the children were not all right and that they were at the bottom of John D. Long Lake. Susan admitted that she drove to the lake, exited the vehicle on the ramp, and allowed it to roll idly into the water, with both toddlers stuck inside. Some reports state that the cold-hearted mother actually watched as her children slowly drowned before fleeing the scene. She was subsequently charged with 2 counts of murder and held without bail. Susan's history of abuse likely contributed to how she parented her own children. Research has found that women who were abused as a child may have difficulty later on developing close relationships with their own children. These mothers may distance themselves from their children because, in their mind, affection is linked to the abuse they experienced. Susan may have had trouble forming an emotional bond with her children that is necessary in a healthy parent-child relationship. This could possibly explain how she was able to kill her own children. Susan insisted that she intended to take her own life alongside her children, but chickened out at the last second. Authorities located the submerged Mazda Protege and found the 2 little boys hanging upside down in their car seats, with one of their tiny hands pressed up against the back window.
Oh my God.
They also recovered a soaking teddy bear and Tom's letter in the car, presenting investigators with a crystal clear motive.
Oh, God.
David was utterly heartbroken and initially held on to hope that perhaps Susan had killed them quickly before sending them into the lake. But tragically, an autopsy later confirmed that Michael and Alex had been alive when they entered the water. The trial began 8 months later, and as Susan was escorted into the courthouse, outraged citizens screamed "baby killer" in her wake. Her only defense was that she suffered from extreme mental illnesses. which were to blame for her heinous actions. It's surprising that a case which had so much media attention was still tried in her home county. Generally, a defense attorney will request a change of venue, arguing their client cannot possibly have a fair trial with an impartial
Fuck your
jury,
change of
which is a
venue.
constitutional right of every defendant. However, the attorney may have also strategically not made such a request, in the hopes that people would have some mercy on her or her family, who they may run into after the case is over. On the other hand, the lead prosecutor in the case asserted that Susan was a cold and calculated killer with zero remorse. They outlined her obsession with Tom Findlay to the jury, clearly demonstrating that she had annihilated her own children in an effort to win him over. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours before handing over a guilty verdict in July 1995. Susan Smith was sentenced to life in prison, but the story doesn't stop there. She was transferred to several different facilities after it was discovered that she had slept with 2 correctional officers. Victims of child abuse endorsed more attitudes indicative of sexual preoccupation as compared to the control group in one study. Susan's actions appear to fit with this research, given
I
her
mean, I
history of
get
infidelity
that,
and her
but
relations with 2
God
correctional
dang.
officers. Susan seems to have a great need to be wanted, and this may be a way that she tries to fill that need. Susan is currently being detained at the
Clearly.
Leith Correctional Institution in Greenwood, South Carolina, and as of late, she seems to be behaving herself. Could it possibly have something to do with the fact that she's going to be eligible for parole in 2024?
What?
She broke her silence in a letter to a local newspaper, stating, "I'm not the monster society thinks I am. The thing that hurts me the most is that people think that I hurt my children in order to be with a man. That is so far from the truth. There was no motive, as it was not even a planned event. I was not in my right mind." I'd beg to differ. Despite acting as a model inmate in recent years, Susan Smith is still the same narcissistic, manipulative monster she's always been. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the state has to say when she becomes eligible for parole. Oh, and as for David Smith, the other victim in this story, he remarried in 2003. The couple later welcomed a baby girl, of which he stated, "There's no greater love in the world than loving a child."
I can't listen. How is she? She rolled her kids off into a pond or a lake, whatever the fuck it was. How does she get parole, y'all? How does she get parole? I don't give a fuck about your mental illness, lady. You weren't in your right mind. I'm so sick and tired of hearing that. All the time. They weren't in their right mind. They weren't in their right mind. That cannot be the excuse for everything. It just cannot. It just cannot. Sometimes people just do bad things. And it's not because they're not in their right mind. It is just because they're bad fucking people. Jesus. Good Lord. I don't understand. So tired of hearing it. Now, the face eater, he was not in his right mind. I get that. That was weird. He's okay. Now, yeah. What was the second one? Yeah, he was a bad person. They didn't try to do that with him. With those two. He was a selfish prick and killed 3 people and burned them and did all of that because he got away with it the first time. What did he do? Kill his dad first, or did he kill his girlfriend first? I don't even remember. Golly gee. Okay. But then, because his daddy was going to take away his money. People are so, like, how do you even... How do you even justify the things that you do sometimes? People actually try to justify the things that they do. And that's the crazy part. So I don't even understand. I don't understand. I don't understand how it happens. It's kind of crazy to me. All right. Well, those were the stories for that one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Remember, like, subscribe, comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me your feelings on the I wasn't in my right mind. Because I don't always buy it. I think that's it's a cop out for some. I mean, obviously there are some that are legit not in their right mind. Trust me, I believe that. But that's not an excuse for everybody. And that's not a thing for everybody. But I think a lot of people try to use that wrongly. But yeah, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. And I shall see you on the next one. Peace.